there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another day of Kit Conspiracy, which I'm combining today with Messy Monday, which focuses on one product per month that we try to give you some tips and tricks on how to use it. So this month we are using inks, and I am going to be doing a combination of things with my inks, and I'm going to be talking about that quite a bit because that's kind of our focus for Messy Monday. We do talk about our layouts as well, but we just kind of wanted to give you guys more information, or as much information as we can, about using inks. And when I say we, I mean me and MK. And we're also doing Kit Conspiracy using the Arden Creative Studio collection called Hidden Creek, designed by Katie Petite. And I am just tearing some of the papers because I'm going to be doing a double page layout. I've got quite a few photos that I want to feature on here. These are more photos from our Alaska trip, and a great way to kind of stretch your kit is to have a white background to start with, and just use your papers here and there for added interest. But I'm going to be doing a bunch of stenciling on my background once I get my papers all prepared. I want to make sure my papers are the right size, and then I can go ahead and mark them on my white background so I know exactly where my mixed media is going. I'm also going to end up marking with a pencil, a light pencil line, where my photos are going, because I don't need to do all of the extra work to put mixed media behind my photos. I also don't need to waste my product in that way. So I'm using some peeled paint and some broken china distress oxide inks. And as you can see here, I'm just kind of figuring out where the edges of my papers are, because I want my stencil work to go underneath there, but I don't necessarily want to go and do a bunch of stenciling that's going to get covered up anyway. So these two colors, I started out with, I think I'm actually going to switch from peeled paint. Yeah, I switched from peeled paint to mowed lawn, because the green that's in this collection is a more true green and not so yellow. And so yeah, I switched that out to mowed lawn once I saw it on my paper. And it's not a big deal that it had some peeled paint on it, and my brush actually still has a little peeled paint on it. When I mix it, it's not going to be noticeable, I guess is the right words. I'm also using the same green brush for both the peeled paint and the mowed lawn. I use my darker green for my darker green colors, and then I have a light green brush that is very light, and so I use that for the lightest green colors that I have when I don't want it to be so bold. And I do use these for my oxides. I actually do use them for my distress inks once in a while. I don't use my distress inks as frequently. I use my oxides a lot more. And when I use them for my regular distress inks, I tend to just wipe them off on a rag that I have next to me so that I don't contaminate or transfer the ink as much as possible. I'm not super cautious about it, but you know, I also don't want that chalky color from the distress oxides to show through, and so the regular distress inks are a lot more transparent than these oxide inks, and so I don't want to kind of mix that up. And I do know that there is something in the oxide inks that makes them a hybrid ink, and which kind of gives them that their oxidization properties, and so you don't want to transfer that between your ink pads if possible. But like I said, I'm not super cautious about it, but I do just use the rag that's sitting next to me and wipe them off when I switch over. I do still use the little foam pads here and there, but I don't use them as frequently, just because I go through them a lot faster, and I prefer the blending brushes. I do have blending brushes in multiple sizes and colors, and I just find that these work great. Now for this little 6-inch stencil, I find this size of blending brush works perfect, and I'm pretty happy about using it. Also, in case you're wondering what that the little pawn and the bar are on my desk. Those are magnets. My glass board that I've got under my papers is magnetic, and I have mentioned this multiple times, but I like to kind of go back and revisit that in case I've got new viewers or whatnot, or maybe you missed the video where I talked about it. But it is magnetic, and so that is helping me to hold my double page layout together in the middle, because I want my image from my stencil to span across both and look like it just aligns. And so keeping those two pieces of paper together is pretty important. It also does a great job of holding the stencil in place. So there is that. Now I have gone over and sprayed some water into my hand and flicked it on to my inked images here. You can see the water drips on the right hand side. It is causing a little bit of running and a little bit of a mottled effect in those inked areas. And I know that's a little bit hard to see on screen, but it is giving it a little bit more texture and a little bit more interest. I really like the way that it's looking. So just kind of making it a little bit more grungy. Now I do realize those are super bright colors, but they do play nicely with this collection, even though they are a little bit on the brighter side. I am going to be doing a little bit of stamping using my inks as well, and I am marking where my stamps are going to go. So I'm just marking where my papers and my photos kind of overlap, because I'm going to have some fern stamps coming out from those areas, and I don't want them on top of my papers, my patterned papers. I just want them on the white paper. These are also from Arden Creative Studio. They have a line of products that are kind of not specific to the particular collection. They're kind of like you can use them across multiple collections. At least I think that's what they're going for. And so that is what this particular stamp set is from. It does have another layer to the fern, but I only used the one because I've already got so much going on. I didn't feel like it was necessary for me to stamp multiple times. It's not like the fern is the only image on here. And so I'm going for kind of a messy mixed media look, if you will. And then I am using some archival ink to stamp the black portion, because if I do any additional mixed media, I don't want my inks or my black ink to run and create a puddle of black ink. So the archival ink is waterproof once it's dry, and that's why I chose that instead of, say, the Distress Black Soot ink. That if you got it wet, it would actually run and create little puddles or pool. So I didn't want that to happen, so I chose something that is going to be waterproof. Now the photos on the right hand side are at the end of our walk through the Alaska Rainforest Sanctuary. They had this big building, which I have which is going to be on the left hand page, and then the right hand page is the inside of the building. It used to be a sawmill, and so you can see the large chainsaw that my husband is holding there. It's taller than he is. And then inside, since this is no longer a working sawmill, there is a gentleman that is from the local, I believe he was from the Tlingit tribe, and he is hand carving a log into a totem. And so we got to watch him do that for a little bit and check that out. It was really kind of cool to see him using all the hand tools to do that. It's quite a labor of love and a work of art, and it was really neat to go ahead and check that out. So you can see there on the right hand side, those are some dies that also are available through Arden Creative Studio. I am not using those particular ones on this layout, but those are also in that same collection of products where they are usable for many different collections. At least that's, I believe, the plan. This, I believe, is their first collection. So I think they have a plan to create more things to go with the non-consumable items. So yeah, the non-consumable items, they're they're trying to give you a little bit of bang for your buck, so you use them in multiple areas, which I think is really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp off this little text stamp. This is also from Arden Creative Studio, another one in that same collection. I'm using some Catherine Pooler Twilight. At this time, I have decided I'm done doing mixed media other than the stamping, and I didn't want it to be black. I want it to be super subtle and kind of in the background. So I'm using the Catherine Pooler Twilight, which is a gray color and not quite so bold, and I really like the way that it ends up looking. It plays well with the paper on the left-hand page that has a bit of gray in it to create that quatrefoil pattern, which is the same pattern that's in my stencil. So I'm liking that, and then I am going to use the laser cut elements, which are really cool because any of the items, well, actually all of them are double-sided. So they're printed on both sides, so your leaves can like tilt one way, flip it over, and you would be tilting the other way. I used a park bench, I believe on Saturday, that you could have facing right or left depending on which way you flipped it. And I think that's a really neat idea that makes your items a lot more usable. And I love that they did that. I have these 2 wax seals. I believe one of these might have been from the Some Assemblage Required Advent Calendar, and the other one I believe might have come in one of the monthly boxes. So these are no longer available on MK's website, but she does periodically have wax seals in some of her items. And so I have these. I thought they were a great match for the greens that I've got going on. So I'm going to go ahead and use them. I'm really happy to finally get them on a layout. I've tried a couple of different times, and they either just weren't the right size or shape to layer up in my cluster, but this time they are just perfect, and I love that. And I'm adding this little place to do a little bit of journaling, and I've got a little spot that says with friends, and I think that's kind of fun because we actually were with friends, and I think it's going to be a nice layout to kind of finish out the layouts that I have for the Rainforest Sanctuary. So I don't know that I'm going to do any more from this particular excursion. There's always the possibility, so I won't say I'm completely done, but I think I've done most of what I want done now. There are these little cute florals that look like they're kind of like I don't know what to call them, maybe a cabochon or something like that, where it's like maybe a button or brad in the middle, a faux button or brad in the middle, and then like the metal piece around the outside, but it's not actually, it's just printed card chipboard. And so I'm using those. I am roughing them up a little bit with my fingernail. That is just a technique that MK uses, and because these pieces are a little bit delicate and small, I decided to go ahead and do that rather than using my distress tool. And so the fingernail trick worked well. I don't know that it's not something I would want to do all the time, but for the little bits and pieces, it works. So I'm just using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to hold everything down. I'm liking the way that that's looking. And then I'm adding this big black title that says beautiful, beautiful trip. It was a beautiful trip. This place was gorgeous. I personally love the fog, and I love the cool weather, and I love kind of that drippy rainforest feel of a cold rainforest, not a warm rainforest. I'd rather put a jacket on than be in shorts and a tank top or something like that. And so it was perfect for me. I loved it. That is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to go check out what MK is doing for Messy Monday. I hope that you are inspired to pull out your inks and use them. Next month we are going to be doing spray inks, and so come back and check that out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.